You see, when we are talking about now, this I call it a controversial Finance Bill 2023 that is proposed by the UDA government by imposing taxes to the Kenyan people or to the civil servants, the 3% you hear about, the increment of this percentage. It is really a debate of the day in the country Kenya, discussing about is it the bill going to go through or is going to be declined? And that is the elephant in the room, and that is the discussion we're having, telling our audience that from our end, the controversial bill, the financial bill 2023, is a serious question mark to each and every Kenyan. More especially, there is a very big question in the regime we have, the UDA government.
Okay, maybe thank you for that explanation. Now, a lot of the bill has been faced with a lot of opposition from not just the public, but even we've seen some of the leaders. Maybe what is that one key thing that you feel like, besides the bill being most of the details being wrong, what is it that one thing that you can acknowledge and you say, this is right for it?
You see, the major thing, Bwana Scarlett and team, I can just say open to the Kenyan people. Before, or when the government of UDA came to the office, it came with its ideology, the manifesto, the idea they had for the country, Kenya. They promised the Kenyans a lot of things, a lot of goodies and such. The reality is, when they entered office, when Ruto became the president, he realized that there is no money to implement his agendas. As a matter of fact, they decided to source for funds. Sourcing for funds, they decided to settle, to take money from the people, to take taxes from the people, for them to implement what they wanted. And now, if you understand from the period of the campaign, the issue was, no, we are going to help the hustlers. We are going to bring the hustler fund. We are going to uplift the lives of the Kenyan people, the ordinary people, ordinary citizens. In reality, it's now people giving money to the government to run these affairs. And that's why people are saying no to the bill. That's why people are against the bill, because people expected it's the government giving people. Instead, it's the government fetching money from people. That's why there is a serious opposition in this bill.
All right, thank you. Maybe just to highlight, what is that one thing that you've seen in the bill that probably you'd consider it right?
You see, many people discuss about the house levy. They talk about the house levy, and people should give contribution for houses to be built. That's one big thing many Kenyans are asking. Many Kenyans have houses. We have teachers who took mortgages. We have teachers who took loans from banks. They gave construction of houses priority. When the government is saying that it's going to build houses for the people, there are those with loans. That thing has been not answered. So someone is telling people that the government is going to build for you houses. And some Kenyans, I know a good number of Kenyans, building houses is not a priority. Many of them have shelter, have where to live. Nobody is living outside the house. When they use the word affordable housing, there are some serious questions the government has not answered. When you talk about affordable housing, well, it's a good idea, but the timing is very poor. In Kenya, we have starvation, a big issue. People cannot get food in their tables. And the government cannot get funds from the people. The poor people are struggling, the sufferers, the hustlers, to fund projects. That one is not a priority. I'm asking also the audience or the Kenyan people, the same government also, I'm just raising a very serious question. In Kenya, we have many children, more especially from the Samburu side, the northern Kenya, where the CS Defense Adendwal comes from. We don't have schools. Schools should be the priority. There is no buildings mahali watoto wanasomea. It should be the priority. I don't understand even who advises this government when they are seriously focused on the housing as a levy, a contribution from the people, cutting people money to build houses. I don't understand even this public participation was sufficient for people to give their information. I think you are here because many people are crying that this house thing should be left out. Second thing, where the concern of the people is, there are details in this bill that is very much questionable. For example, in this bill, ukigongwa na gari kwa barabara, uende kuclaim kwa insurance kwa mtu wangu aligongwa ama gari yangu iligongwa, isemekane kuwa you are going to be compensated, uende kulipo ile pesa kulingana na claim yako. Ile pesa ukipewa inakatwa tax. Ukiingia kwa matatu, ukalie kiti ya matatu, mwenye matatu ile kila kiti passenger anakalia kwa matatu inakatwa pesa. Meaning end month someone who owns a matatu should pay an average of 7,000 to 8,000. Alafu salonicas, watu wenye wako na salonicas unalipia zile viti end month 5,000. Meaning government is really looking for money from the sufferers, from the people who are struggling with life, ndio waende kujenga manyumba. That is not our priority as a country. That's why so many people are asking, is really the housing levy a priority? Affordable housing, is it a priority in Kenya? The government is confusing. And the area where you just understand very well that this thing is a government is desperate about it. You had Gachagua, the deputy president of Kenya, threatening MPs that MPs were not going to pass this bill in parliament, watapelekwa kwa disciplinary. Yani MPs wa UDA ama wa Kenya Kwanza wenye watapitisha hii bill watapelekwa kwa disciplinary committee. Why are they forcing this thing to pass? And let me tell Kenyans that if this thing is going to pass, understand that there is serious reinforcement after passing to implement that law. People will suffer. Ensure this thing does not fail, go through. That's what I can say.
And I just want to I only have one question I want to ask you. According to the Constitution, so now we have said that our deputy president Gachagua is threatening MPs that they must pass the bill, and if they fail, they will take them to disciplinary committee. So according to Constitution, are MPs allowed to be threatened to pass a certain bill?
And that's why we are wondering with the regime in the office, why should you force people? Do you understand democracy? MPs are people's representatives. MPs speak on behalf of the people. MPs get information directly from funerals, from fundraising, people baraza, etiyo bill tunaitaka ama hatuitaki. So far, majority of Kenyans, about 75%, have said no to the bill. Why should Kenya Kwanza, executive, force people, force MPs that it has to go through? Because the reality they have had in the background that people are not ready for the bill. So they want to force the MPs. And the Kenyans are watching.
So we find that most of the Kenyans, they're just there, they don't know what it contains in the bill, which MPs they will pass. So I don't know if you can even tell them some of the details which are entailed in those bills.
That's why I said earlier, this bill is controversial. Does not work with the ordinary people. It's only the government that is fetching money from people to implement this agenda. In fact, we have the taxes that are available for us as a country. People are starving. People are hungry. Some days ago we were talking about unga, the cost of unga. Imeenda juu. Sasa it's about 250, 270. Unga paketi mbili 2 kg. They are the same people wana struggle kutafuta unga, ndio unakuja kuambia tena tunataka kuongeza taxes ili tuende kufund mambo ya housing. Ask any Kenyan who is sleeping outside.
there are many Kenyans who are sleeping outside. Then I
People
have
have shelter. People
no,
have shelter.
yes.
And let me be very categorical. It doesn't matter where you are living, but if you ask these ordinary Kenyans, they tell you, first thing, we need food.
Okay, what we can say that maybe Ruto understands the slogan of Asla, and even maybe seeing some of the Aslas wanalala huko nje kwa barabara kwa ninizi kiwanja.
Have you ever had any Kenyan coming out to protest that we are sleeping outside? They already protested that they are hungry.
Okay, okay. I just want to ask you one question. Where do you, if, for example, this bill, MPs passed it, where do you see Kenya in the next 10 years?
First, I'm saying this and let the audience hear me clear. Housing is not a bad thing. Taxes are not bad things. But in Kenya, this if this bill goes through, it's like soliciting funds from the people because people are struggling with the basic needs. Why create other sources of income, other things that people don't buy? I'm saying in 10 years, in fact, Kenya will be crying, will be in double, triple poverty because still Ruto is taking the interests of the rich, not the poor. And that's why many Kenyans are just feeling like he's not implementing what he promised in the campaign period. So it means he was not prepared when he was to get funds to run the government, to run the country. In reality, the president is struggling to run he has no funds. You cannot tell people that you cannot look for loans. You come to get money from them, the money that they don't have. I think the president is lacking advisors, if that's what I can say.
Okay, then I think you have not gotten my question very well, but maybe you have not really nailed the point which I wanted. So now we found
in 10 years, I've answered the question.
Yes.
In 10 years,
yes.
Kenya will be double, triple poor. That's your question. That's what I answered.
Okay, then now I just want to ask you, we have the 3% tax.
The levy. The house levy.
The house levy. And we have the companies which employed Kenyans. So do you think if they work with these 3%, will they employ more workers, more Kenyans, or they will suck, or they will just
First,
away?
I wonder which employment are we talking about? Construction work is a temporary job. It's not a permanent job. You build this house A, comes to completion, you have no job next minute. Is that the job you are talking about? And when people are not going to pay the 3%, youths will miss jobs. Which jobs? Are you talking about plumbing?
No, I'm not. Okay, in Kenya we have companies, different companies, and most of the people of the Kenyan citizens they were employed in these companies. We find that after someone work for a certain duration and a retire, still is going back home still. So I'm talking about these companies which employed Kenyans permanently.
About the house levy and the companies we are talking about, this thing is a big topic. If you need to understand it better, companies employ people. The tax, the 3%, the owner of the company, now the employer, needs to pay 3% for each employee in the area. Is it sustainable? That's the question I'm asking you. Employers will just expel so many employees from their working environments because it's not sustainable. Second thing, we have investors in Kenya, local investors, who have built houses, some who have gone to banks, got loans, wakajenga manyumba. Serikali ikijenga manyumba zenye inataka kumaanisha hao watu watakuwa na clients. Government needs to sit down and look this thing in a bigger way. Usiumize pande hii, ukiuplift pande hii. You have to balance. And that's why I'm feeling like this house levy in Kenya is not a priority. Number two, if it is called a contribution, you can't force people to contribute. It should be on a willing basis that I need to give my money to uplift a certain hustler. Hii ni jasho ya mtu. Kama mtu ataki kupeana pesa yake, you can't force simply you are a president. We have also laws that controls this. What are the rights of employees? You can't force them. That's why many Kenyans are feeling like it's not working well with the regime. But I feel like the regime has got no money to run affairs of the government. They are only using house levy as an scapegoat for them to get funds to implement their agenda, their private agenda. Again, President Ruto is not trusted. He's not trustworthy. That's why perhaps many Kenyans are not comfortable. Why? He promised so many Kenyans that we are going to bring hustlers watapata pesa ya kufanya biashara, mama mboga watafanya hivi na vile. In fact, boda boda watafanya hiki na kile. Mpaka unasikia the nickname outside here is Mr. Promise. You know, when people call you Mr. Promise, they feel like you have not implemented what they expected. Instead, unataka pesa from them, you implement your. So many people feel like the 3% is not going to the right direction.
By the way, so it's very fun and very interesting, and we are really enjoying it very well. So I'm seeing someone here is asking.